Hey y'all, I've just beaten the first story pack DLC for Borderlands 4, Mad Ellie in the Vault of the Damned, and here's what I think about it. In this video, I'll be talking about the story, open world, gameplay, and a few extras. Quick note about spoilers, I will be revealing this DLC's setup and a few extra details about it. However, I won't be spoiling what happens at the end. I'm certain that you can watch this video before playing the DLC. I've played all the Borderlands games and their DLCs, and the series was never really able to captivate me until the third entry. Borderlands 2 is seen as the golden child of the franchise, with a fantastic story, yet all the level grinding you had to do actually ruined it for me. Borderlands 3, on the other hand, slightly fixed the level grinding issue, as well as much better and more fun gameplay, all with a pretty bad story. While I liked Borderlands 3 the best so far, I still felt like this franchise wasn't exactly for me. Borderlands 4, on the other hand, changed that idea, and is now easily my favorite in the franchise. It took the great gameplay from 3 and updated it even more with faster movement and a grapple. On top of that, level grinding was reduced even more and replaced with a large open world to explore. The story was also pretty decent as well, much better than 3, which resulted in a fantastic game in my opinion and easily the best in the franchise. Borderlands 4 looked like it took all the things I didn't like about previous games and changed them while still retaining all the stuff I did like. I was pretty excited to see what Gearbox would do with its first DLC and if they would be able to keep evolving the series. Unfortunately, Mad Ellie is a step back for Borderlands, feeling like a generic Borderlands DLC from past entries rather than a fresh new take like Borderlands 4 itself. Being the first of 2 story packs, you'd think that Mad Ellie would have a decent story. Unfortunately, the story here is bad, even by Borderlands DLC standards. The story setup is this. Moxie asks you to go save her daughter, Ellie. Ellie has been brainwashed by an evil monolith that makes her think her father is talking to her. You go find her and try to help her get free of the monolith. If that sounds simple, that's because it is. Even in the short 5-mission runtime, the story is still being stretched, with the first 3 missions especially being incredibly boring. Even by Borderlands standards, this DLC has a lot of talking and character moments. There are multiple times where you'll just have to stand around and listen to Ellie and Moxie talk. Literally, all they say every time is that Ellie wants to know more about her father, and Moxie ignores her and says they need to help free her. That's it. The writing isn't terrible or anything, but it's just so uninteresting here. The characters are just not really saying anything interesting, and the story itself is told so poorly that it's hard to stay engaged. Multiple times while playing, I had no idea what I was doing besides following an objective marker. When I have to ask myself why I'm doing something, and the answer is just because, then you know you've got a poorly written story. The story does try to have an overarching theme of like parent-child relationships and how important they are, but it's just so in the background the whole time. The DLC is trying to contrast Ellie and Moxie and another parent-child relationship found later, but it doesn't really build towards anything or really come together until the very last mission. Until then, it's really just a lot of the same thing over and over again, and it gets old quick. The story does its job here and gives you a reason, if small, to keep moving, but it doesn't elevate to heights and standard of the base Borderlands 4. It's a real shame because the ideas behind this story are very interesting. The monolith is ripped straight out of Dead Space. It will infect you, make you see dead people, and eventually turn you into a zombie. It's a very interesting concept and one that I think could make this a really unique DLC. What if we got a sort of horror type Borderlands DLC where we're trapped on a desolate spaceship looking for Ellie, all while trying to not get killed by the mutilated zombies? The game even teases this exact thing where you get visions of a ship filled with flesh walls all throughout the DLC. Unfortunately, it just doesn't do anything with it. The DLC is set in the new Whispering Glacier region, which is a new small open world area. Unfortunately, this area is just kind of not great in my opinion. It's nothing terrible, but compared to the fantastic open world in the base game, it feels shallow. To me, this feels like nothing different than what's found in past Borderlands games and DLC. While it is technically an open area, over the course of the campaign, you just follow one straight path from beginning to end, which is exactly what previous DLCs did. I wish the DLC would give you a reason to deviate from that path like the base game did. Since the entire DLC is essentially a guided tour of the open world, most of it is spent within the Whispering Glacier. The Whispering Glacier is literally the most generic ice world with nothing special about it. For any other DLC, this may work, however, the issue is that the game keeps taunting you with visions of this zombie ship. The tonal whiplash of getting these visions every 30 minutes of a cool, unique area and then going back to a generic ice biome is huge. It left me wanting so much more and liking the open world even less because of it. Thankfully, the game actually does let you enter the ship near the end of the campaign, which seems like this was meant to be intentional build-up, although I still think it hurts the Whispering Glacier by contrast. The mission design and gameplay here in Mad Ellie is pretty typical for Borderlands and is actually one of the high points here. While the story and open world left something to be desired, this is still the exact same Borderlands 4 gameplay that I fell in love with. There's no real new or interesting missions here, rather just the same types of objectives. Clear out a camp, collect a thing, kill a boss, etc. If you're used to Borderlands mission design, then it's just an excuse to play more of that fun Borderlands 4 combat, and that's alright with me. I do think the mission design has one slight flaw here in the DLC, which is its pacing. Borderlands main missions are usually pretty long, and that's no different here in Mad Ellie, with each mission being about 30 minutes long. Unfortunately though, because this is a lower budget DLC instead of a full AAA game release, it's much harder to keep missions interesting for that long. The repetitive mission design mixed with the generic open world and story results in some boring missions occasionally. It got to a certain point where I was opening up a walkthrough just to see how much longer I had left to go in each mission. Even the gameplay and combat itself couldn't help occasionally, as since this DLC is meant to be started early in the campaign, some combat encounters were just mindlessly easy. At no point in the campaign is this more apparent than the third mission, which is easily the worst point in the whole DLC. This mission tasks you with getting Crazy Earl to open up a door for you, however, the only way he'll do that is if you get him high. To do so, you must go collect 10 different plant parts around a small area, occasionally fighting enemies as you go. This mission encapsulates all the bad of this DLC. This mission has almost absolutely nothing to do with the main story and was clearly only added to make the campaign longer. The mission also routinely forces you to stand around and talk to a new character only added for this mission, who is slightly annoying. The area itself is different, taking place under the ice, yet still pretty generic, especially compared to the zombie ship. And finally, collecting the plant parts is usually as simple as walking up to them and grabbing them, which is as mindless as it sounds. I'd rather the DLC be even shorter than it already is than play clearly padding missions such as these. To wrap up, I do want to talk about a few extra things. One of the biggest complaints with Borderlands 4 is that it has no endgame. Unfortunately, it seems like that appears to be the case here too with Mad Ellie. I know it has a few extra side missions and open world events, but beyond that, I don't think there's much here. If you stop playing because of that, then unfortunately, I don't think this DLC will satisfy that need for you at all. Borderlands 4 also launched in a pretty bad technical state, although for me personally, I never had many issues with it. The game runs fine for me at a constant 75 FPS, although that is with DLSS and FrameGen to be fair. This DLC runs just as good, although I did have a few glitches. Occasionally, some characters would just not say their lines for some reason, and would just skip to the next character's lines. It was infrequent for sure, but unfortunately, it took away from the story occasionally. I also had one point where enemies got stuck in walls, almost forcing me to reload a save to continue on. Neither of these were game-breaking issues, although with how Borderlands 4 launched, I thought I should mention it. Mad Ellie feels like a huge step back for the series, which is a shame after the huge leap that Borderlands 4 was. The story here feels like it's only there because it has to be. It's poorly told with great ideas and unfortunately bland characters. The open world is basic and generic, not even coming close to the heights of the base game or even the teases and ideas of the DLC itself. The gameplay is still that Borderlands 4 gameplay that we know and love, if not muddied a little by poor pacing and padding. To me, this DLC feels like it's only here because it has to be, as since every Borderlands game has DLC, this one probably should too. They took a few good ideas and mixed it with their typical DLC formula, and we got this. What results is something that's just fine. It's not bad by any means, but I have trouble calling it good, honestly. At the end of the day, it's just more Borderlands. Some people may like that, and some may not. Not every DLC can be as good as Phantom Liberty, of course, but a good DLC should at least remind the player of how fun the base game is. Unfortunately, all this DLC reminded me of was the past. I do not recommend Mad Ellie in the Vault of the Damned. 5 out of 10. Well, y'all, that's my review of Borderlands 4 Story Pack 1. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, comment, or even subscribe. That's all I got for this review, but I do want to take the last few moments to talk about me and my channel. Alright y'all, so gonna be a shorter one today. I have a class starting in less than 20 minutes, so we gotta get through this. But yeah, so I'm glad I could get through this pretty quick. There's a really quick turnaround time for this video, just like I thought there would be. So what's next? Well, Starfield DLC, I hopefully will start that today. I'm gonna edit this video and start that DLC while it's exporting. And then hopefully I'll have that video out before Mouse PI comes out. That's my goal. And that's going to be the next video after the Starfield. I am not going to make a video on Crimson Desert anytime soon. I would like to do that after Mouse PI and before Sorrows, because I'm not going to do that other Capcom game that I forget the name of, Pragmata. But it's like, I just don't think I'll have the time because unfortunately, these are the last 3 weeks of the semester and it's just gonna get busier and busier and busier. So like, if I get these next 2 videos out, I'll be lucky. But yeah, I also said I was gonna do a video on the Division Resurgence. I'm not so sure about that anymore. If I do, it'll maybe be delayed like a few months. I don't know. I just don't want to play it right now, to be honest with you. But yeah, like, that's all I have to say on that front. Just Starfield DLC potentially next week. I mean, hopefully, if I'm lucky. I don't know. Like I said, I'll be busy. I have to start studying next week and work on a group project and blah, blah, blah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is, like, a realization I made last night is, like, The writing of scripts used to be my favorite part, but now that's becoming like a big hurdle to get over in like video editing. And it's not that I don't like writing, but it's just that like not everything I want to talk about. Like this DLC, I think I came up with a fine like thesis statement, and I think this script is fine, maybe not as good as my normal script, but it's good. But it's like this, usually I would not make an essay this long about something like this. I think that's just what happens with YouTube and stuff like that, where not everything I talk about is going to be something I'm inherently like super passionate about, especially while I'm doing reviews like of this nature. I will do eventually longer form video essays on games I love, but until then, yeah. So, I don't know, I mean, it's just something I noticed and wanted to point out. But yeah, Starfield DLC should be coming soon. I hope to start that today, like I said. So, yeah, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye!